Good day everyone. Today I'm going to report about the standard 1200, that is the proficiency and due professional care. These are revised standards effective on January 1, 2017. So performing engagements with proficiency and due professional care is the responsibility of every internal auditor. Achieving the two attributes begins with an understanding of the mandatory guidance of the International Professional Practices Framework or IPPF, especially the IIA's Code of Ethics. So internal auditors usually develop proficiency via education, experience, professional development opportunities, and qualifications such as the internal auditor profession's most relevant certification, the Certified Internal Auditor or CIA, granted by the IAA. Internal auditors who have attained professional certifications need to be aware of the continuing education requirements to keep their certifications current. True professional care requires understanding the IPPF's systematic and disciplined approach to internal auditing, which is supplemented by the organization's specific policies and procedures established by the Chief Auditor Executive or CAE. The CAE is responsible for ensuring conformance with this standard by the internal audit activity as a whole. As part of managing the internal audit activity, the CAE establishes policies and procedures that enable internal auditors to perform engagements with proficiency and due professional care. This involves the CAE's recruitment and training of internal auditors, as well as the proper planning, staffing, and supervising of engagements. To start, the CAE may review the responsibilities established in the Internal Audit Charter and Internal Audit Plan and reflect on the knowledge, skills, and other competencies that the internal audit activity will need to possess to complete the planned audit engagements. So, there are actually considerations for implementation of these engagements. So, for internal auditors, due professional care, conformance with the IAA's Code of Ethics, and may entail compliance to the organization's Code of Conduct and any additional codes of conduct relevant to the professional designation attained. Internal audit activities may have a formal process requiring an internal auditor to sign an annual declaration related to the IAA's Code of Ethics or the organization's Code of Conduct. Internal auditors generally develop individual proficiency throughout their careers by obtaining and maintaining appropriate certifications, experience, and professional education, which includes continuing professional development. The CAE may use the IAA's Global Internal Audit Competency Framework or a similar benchmark to establish the criteria by which to assess the proficiency of internal auditors. The criteria may be used to create job descriptions and an inventory of the competencies needed within the internal audit activity. Additionally, the CIE may develop a strategy for recruiting, assigning, training, and professionally developing staff in order to establish a proficient internal audit activity and ensure that its competencies remain current and sufficient. In developing the internal audit plan, the CIE generally thinks about alignment between the knowledge, skills, and other competencies needed to complete the plan and the resources available among the internal audit activity and other providers of assurance and consulting services. The CAE and internal audit supervisors may compare the skills needed to accomplish each engagement's scope and objectives with the proficiency of each available internal auditor. To ensure due professional care is applied, the CAE must establish policies and procedures, that is the Standard 2040, which generally incorporate the mandatory guidance of the IPPF and provide a systematic and disciplined approach to the engagement process. The CAE may require individual auditors to sign forms acknowledging that they understand the policies and procedures. Internal auditors can use their knowledge to assess the engagement's scope and objectives and determine how to complete the engagement effectively. By following the mandatory guidance of the IPPF and the internal audit policies and procedures for planning, executing and documenting audit engagements, internal auditors are essentially exercising due professional care. So after engagements are completed, the CAE or engagement supervisor generally reviews the engagement process, results, and conclusions. This may be followed by a meeting with the internal audit staff that conducted the engagement to discuss relevant observations and inform supervisory assessment of how diligently the established procedures were followed. Considerations for demonstrating conformance evidence demonstrating conformance with standard 1200 could include any of the following. First is competency assessments of the internal audit activity. The competencies outline the critical behaviors required for effective performance as an internal auditor and provide the basis for a broad range of practices, including recruitment. Second is records of a recruitment and training strategy, job descriptions, and resumes. A recruitment strategy is a clear plan that explains what roles you'll recruit for, when, why, and how. It should be tied with your overall company objectives. Next is internal audit policies and procedures and work paper templates. This includes reviews and analysis of particular areas of a department's operation to provide an independent appraisal of its effectiveness, efficiency, adequacy of internal control, and compliance with appropriate regulations. Next is the evidence that internal audit policies and procedures were communicated and signed acknowledgement that the internal audit staff understand them. So, auditing evidence is the information collected by an auditor to ascertain the accuracy and compliance of a company's financial statements. Next one is evidence supporting annual declaration related to the IA's Code of Ethics and the organization's Code of Conduct. So, its purpose is to promote an ethical culture in the profession of internal auditing. So this is disclosing confidential engagement-related information that is potentially damaging to the organizations in response to a court order. Next is documented supervisory reviews of engagements and post-engagement client surveys or other forms of feedback could indicate the proficiency and due professional care exhibited by individual internal auditors. This includes quality control review by manager, production of reports including the strategic plan and annual internal audit report, attendance at audit committee meetings, regular contact with the organization's management, liaison with external audit, and internal quality assurance reviews. Lastly is the internal auditor's true professional care may be evidenced in engagement work papers or other documentation of the procedures and processes used during the audit engagements. This is to plan and perform audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatements, whether caused by error or fraud. That's all. Thank you for listening.